Damien, for that wonderful welcome. I welcome you all. What a time to be in Manchester. Manchester has been at the forefront of revolution for a long time, and we are at the cusp of a revolution here. This industry is not going to be the same in a year from now, maybe not even in 6 months from now, because there's so much innovation, so many things changing. AI, agentic AI, and the way that we do business is fundamentally shifting. Before, it was good enough to just be an operator and have nice, clean properties and have a reputation on that basis, but now we need to do more. We have to have brands in order to be able to create a moat around our entire organization and to be able to inspire guests to trust us and to be able to justify higher pricing beyond being a commodity on an OTA. So today, I want to come to you as not from STR Boosters' perspective necessarily, but from my personal perspective. I have been a brand marketer for a few years, since, well, I won't give away my age, but it's been a while, and I started a marketing agency from scratch. It was a tough road, but we earned the trust of these brands, and it was an absolute honor and education to learn from them, and I got bored after a while and decided to start my own brand, which is this one here. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, right? Give it up for Kingston. It's confusing because I'm actually Swedish now as well. I moved to Sweden about like 8 years ago, and was living in the States after that. So it's very, and I was managing the business remotely until the pandemic. I actually sold one of the hostels before the pandemic, luckily, and I sold it for triple of what I bought the property for. The other two properties were hotels that are actually leasing. So the brand was so successful, and it was Jamaica's first hostel, by the way. It was so successful that I just followed the guests around to where they would go and open properties. So today I'm going to just share with you some of my personal experiences around branding and why I think it's vital that you embrace it. And also I'm going to show you some practical steps in actually building your own brand. A strong brand gets direct bookings, it's clear. I mean, I was just at Accor, at Ibis a while ago, and they signed me up for the Accor membership. They want to get my email, and they want to keep me in their system. They want me to be a part of their community. I said yes, because they're going to give me 10% off. I said fine. But we need to also create an affinity with our guests that will convince them that we are the right choice, that we are the ones that they need to consider when they're looking for somewhere to stay. And not only somewhere to stay, but somewhere to stay that actually satisfies their underlying needs. And their underlying needs is something that is easy to look at on the surface, but it really is much more nuanced than that. It's a very deeply psychological thing, which is above my pay grade. But I can tell you, for example, and this is an absurd but real example, I was working for Diageo, and they had Red Stripe was in their portfolio. They bought Red Stripe, and by the way, you all know Diageo, right? The spirits portfolio, and people stopped drinking Red Stripe, and they couldn't understand. They asked us to help them and all kinds of things, but the underlying thing, it turns out that people didn't want to be associated with the shape of the bottle. The bottle's shape, they didn't want to, their own body, they didn't want to be reflected as a part of the bottle, they were associated with it. So those are the kinds of little things that's hard for us to even put our finger on in terms of psychology, but I'm going to go through a few things that are going to help us. Right, so a framework for building a brand is easy to follow acronym, which is called STORY, right? And by the way, a story is just a pattern that is easily recognizable and absorbed by people, and it's a way that we understand the world through stories. So it's easy for us to remember this, and the first thing is S for the specific guest avatar. And so it's no longer good enough to say, my guests are 18 to 45-year-olds who have kids and are just looking for a comfortable place to stay. When I was marketing for Diageo, they took us into a room. We had to actually bid for work, and I was the lead creative at the agency, and I had to actually come up with campaigns in order to be able to win the work. And they would sit us down and they would tell us about the brand identity, the brand promise. They'd tell us about the specific avatar. The specific avatar. They could tell us everything about the demographics, the psychographics, how the person thought, what brand affinities they have, what other brands they like, what are the occasions that they're likely to use the Diageo product, what are the specific occasions that the product is applicable in. And I could go into it, but it's really deep, and you have to get to that level also in order to be able to create an effective brand. And I'm going to show you how, but let's go through these others. You need to also have a transformative promise. Remember, the brand is not about you. You are Yoda. The guest is Luke Skywalker. Maybe that's too old. You are Mr. Miyagi, and the guest is the Karate Kid. So you are aiding that guest in a journey to transformation. Everybody wants transformation in their lives. They want to achieve something that goes beyond where they are now. They want to achieve an outcome. It may be a couple who have lost themselves and want to find a way back, are looking for a perfect escape to do that. It might be the overworked mother who is feeling guilty that she doesn't spend enough time with her family, and she's putting them together. But these are the things that you guys do. You make special moments for people. And that's why I love this industry, because I was able to accomplish that with my property, and it drove me, and I'm passionate about it. Obstacles. What obstacles do you remove? How do you achieve, how do you get, I got a little bit choked up there. But anyway, obstacles that you remove. Like when somebody comes to a destination, what are the things that commonly are a problem for them? How do you remove those obstacles? Are you seeing them and hearing them and actually paying attention to those obstacles and trying to make them as easy or as to eliminate them, right? Reason to believe, your reputation, why should they believe you? What are other people saying? What certifications do you have? You need to be credible. You need to have trust. People do business with people they like and trust. And your unique advantage, and that's something you need to nail down. You have to understand that your unique advantage goes beyond just, oh, you know, we have the finest homes in so-and-so area or whatever. You have to look at the little nuances and understand your avatar as well and see how you can uniquely serve them in order to define your unique advantages. And the more you look into it, the more you'll find it. When I started the hostel, I nearly made the fatal mistake of calling it Green Door Guest House. It would have been a complete disaster. And the other thing I did when I started the hostel, I said, no rules. I'll just make the minimum rules and I'll let the guests define the path. And I also used the property itself. The property spoke to me. I mean, I didn't have enough bathrooms for one bathroom for each individual person. So it had to be a hostel, and it was in the area where it was reggae music, so it was reggae hostel. Shaggy's studio was just up the road, and people could, you know, so I had to build a story around the area. And that's another thing, the locations that you operate in, what are the stories that you can derive from those locations? Because people that come to your properties don't necessarily come to your property for your property, they're coming to your property for the surroundings, for what they're interested in the surroundings. And we could all go to the same destination, we're all going to see different things. And that's something I learned. We're all going to see different things, so we have different interests. There's certain things we don't even want to see because our mind blocks it out. But you have to understand what it is that matters to your guest and help them to see it, to curate it. And that can be your unique advantage. Your unique advantage can also be in the style of your management. And authenticity is so important. You should align with your unique advantages with the personality of your leadership. If you don't, then you're going to not come across authentic, and that's the worst thing can happen. Nobody likes a fake. Nobody likes a fake person. Even if you're a nice fake, nobody likes that. So the guest persona, demographic and psychographic motivation. Both are very important. I find the psychographics to be very, very interesting, and it can lead you to some of the underlying motivations that guests have in staying at a property and what really endears them to you. So I urge you, if there's one thing you take from this presentation, is create an ideal guest avatar. And this is supposed to be interactive, so I'm going to ask you now, does anybody here have an ideal guest avatar? Do. Awesome. Is it really helpful to you? Does it guide you? And okay. And what are the key things that, to you, that an ideal guest avatar really accomplishes?
Well, it's identifying what the type of guest is, you know, the families, what type of families, where they're coming from, what's their age group, how do you market to them, etc.
Awesome. That's great. I want all of you to have one, and have more than one, because you know that the calendar attracts different types of people. There's a high season crowd who can afford a high season holiday, and there's those who come during the off season and the shoulder seasons who might not have the same budget, or there might be other groups who come during weekdays. Your job is to fill the calendar as much as you can without stressing the operations too much. But the level of detail that I need you to go into with the ideal guest avatar is Mary Jones is a 35-year-old mother with a 16 and 18-year-old child. She's divorced. She lives in so-and-so exact address. You're making an imaginary person, and you're creating it based on the data that you've gathered, right? And you're going into how she consumes information, where she likely found you, what matters deeply to her. The list goes on. And I created a solution for this. You all can create one later today if you want. I created a custom GPT that you can use to create one. It's just a start, because you have to do what other great brands do, which is survey your guests. You have to survey them on a periodic basis. Find some way to incentivize them to take your survey, and because you at least convince them that you want to learn more about them so you can get to know them better. And I think they'll be responsive, or receptive. But your guest reviews are a critical source of data that you can actually leverage in order to know who your ideal guest is. I basically take a listing, I will take a screenshot of it, I'll load it up to the custom GPT, I will copy and paste like a big sample of reviews, I'll stick it in there, and it will spit out everything. And once I get that information, the detailed level of information, I am clear. I'm clear why they're pissed off when so-and-so goes wrong. I'm clear what triggers motivate them. I'm clear on a lot of different things. And it makes the business much easier to run. You understand them, and they will like you more because they will feel seen and heard, right? So, why do people book direct over booking OTAs? Well, the affinity, so do they feel part of, do they feel closeness to you? The perks, are you giving them a better deal or more privileges? Because if you have a luxury property or luxury business, discounts might not be the motivating factor. You have to understand that as well. Trust, do they trust you? Is it clear what you're offering? Can they find what they need to know quickly on your website so they can make a decision? And the ease in which they are able to book. And it's very interesting because yesterday we were talking about some of the things that were the headwinds in the industry, and Airbnb just, I think there's a, 5% shift back to OTAs now after we made headway a year ago. Why is that? Now they're using AI and making things much more simple and easy and straightforward. They're going to become like Amazon, where it's just one-click shopping. And it's a hard proposition to resist for the average person out there to be able to resist, just be able to find a place and click be able to book. So you have to also look at ways to make it easier because the power has shifted to the consumer. They want choice. We used to take a lot of bookings by WhatsApp and email and phone calls and all that kind of thing. A lot of things that we tend to ignore here because we're trying to systematize our business. But there are tools that you can use, including AI solutions that can help you to accept bookings through WhatsApp or through email or what have you. But giving them the flexibility gives them the level of autonomy, right? And that brings us to the SCARF model, which is something created by the neuroscientist David Rock. And I like to include this in the presentation because this is what really triggers people psychologically. Status, how important do I feel, right? And not every guest should feel as important as the other. Well, they should all feel important, but not every guest has the same value. The guests with a higher lifetime value are more important to you. They should be accorded more privileges, right? The ones that are return guests and the ones who show loyalty and the ones who promote your business are the ones that you need to take into your ecosystem and actually accord them the status. But everybody is supposed to have a certain level of status. Certainty, people want to be clear. When your mind is unclear and you're not certain about things, you get fearful. And then when you're fearful, you take no action or you avoid situations. Autonomy, people want to feel in control, right? So that goes back to the same thing about allowing people to be able to book whatever way they want to book, or at least this late cancellation or free cancellation up to a certain time. I know that's a touchy topic, but you have to start looking at that as well and starting to balance it. And I think that everything goes back to from pricing down to the returns that you're making on your business and that kind of thing. And I think most of us are actually pricing too low to be able to make these concessions and stuff like that. But anyway, that's for another argument. And fairness. Fairness is one of the most compelling things. It's one of the things that drives bad reviews. When people feel that they've been unfairly handled, and sometimes it's not your fault, it's because you don't have any clear policies. And your policies are part of your brand. Your policies and your values are part of your brand. You need to look at the brand values that you have and incorporate those in your policies and apply your policies consistently and make it clear. One of the interesting things I noticed, I did a spreadsheet with every attendee's, pretty much every attendee's website, and I did some analysis and stuff, and I looked at a lot of the reviews, and British people love to write. They love to write, and they write very beautifully, and they'll tear down your property very beautifully, right? And it's amazing. So it's an avenue and reviews are the most important piece of content related to your brand. So you have to pay attention to them, but we often overlook them. And I've worked in hotels as well, and a lot of these big name hotels, they overlook them too. But it's a mistake. We need to be able to address the brand, address their complaints using the policy, and also sometimes they're not a good fit. That's why the guest persona, or identifying the guest persona and knowing who is the right fit and addressing them in your copy and all the things that you're doing in your brand communications is important so that you don't have the wrong fit and you're getting problems, right? How are we doing for time, Damien? I hope I'm not rambling too much. 5 minutes, okay, good. All right, so developing a meaningful connection throughout the guest journey is very important. As you know, guest journey is about dreaming and research and staying and all those things. You need to be able to touch them at all those points consistently with your brand and to be able to let them know exactly what you're about. And keep in touch with them. Keep in touch, that's the most important thing. The second most important thing I want you to know is that loyalty is the holy grail of this business. When a hotel flag is valued, it's valued for the loyalty that it has with the guest base, right? And loyalty, that will attract the real estate. So the brand always leads, the real estate comes after, and operators come somewhere in between, the three levels, right? So whatever you do, make sure you create a loyalty program. So these are your actionable takeaways, and I hope I didn't hog the show and didn't give too many people a chance to talk, but I had a lot to get off my head. But define your brand promise, right? And make it clear along at least 3 guest touch points. Create your avatar, your ideal guest persona. I unfortunately don't have a QR code with that now, but what I'll do is I'll leave it with Damien and he can share it, right? And it just has no sign up or no, I don't want your email or anything. I'm not here to sell anything. you use it, all right? Launch one guest loyalty initiative. If you haven't already, launch one. If you already have one, launch another one, okay? So, I hope that's been helpful, and I'm open for questions or comments, or let's start at this small discussion.
Any questions?
Sure. Oh, Damien, maybe this one. Oh, okay.
Was there anybody had any questions?
I had a question about the circle that
Yeah.
was on the screen. It had repeats twice on the left-hand side. Can you define what the difference is between those two?
It was just for display purposes. I just ran it through Nano Banana and got that. So I plan to really engage and talk more than I really did with the graphics. But I can help you with that. If you want to reach out to me, I can give you a clearer picture of that whole process if you want. That was just for illustrative purposes. But is there a specific thing that you wanted to ask me about it? Oh, yeah, it wasn't my fault. It's Nano Banana. So, yeah, good question. Thanks.
How have you handled fairness with your cancellation policies?
That's a good question. When I was operating, I used to try and be as lenient as possible. Obviously, where it relates to peak season, where it's hard to recover losses, it's a little stricter. But if there are extenuating circumstances, I did accommodate. But I think the most important thing is to really be clear in your policies about what your rules are, and then once that's clear and they understand that, then it's fine to have strict cancellation policies if something arises. But if it's extenuating circumstances and there was a terrible event in a family or something like that, then I think it's wise to really give it some special consideration.
Sorry, I've got a dodgy ankle, so I'm kind of doing my best to get about.
And thank you for the presentation. You mentioned about guest loyalty. Can you give some examples, apart from just sort of discounts, what sort of guest loyalties we should be looking at? Thank you.
Sure, that's a good question. Actually, if you give them some kind of status, and that's why when you are invited to a club, you feel that sense of affinity, and it gives you that sense of, I was staying at a Citizen M the other day, and they wrote me an email and called me a citizen. I felt good. I was like, okay, I have 3 citizenship now. At least doing that, and then also perks, little perks. It's not all about price. It's not about discounting. Sometimes doing little things and touch points. There are some interesting touch points that you can actually consider. If you're a luxury brand, for example, put a nice what do you call it? Not bathrobe with a branded bathrobe, or nice branded toiletries, and make that something that is complimentary for certain types of guests. Flexible booking, perhaps for those guests as well. And it's all about access. It's all about access. That's how you can incentivize people, by giving them more access to you. Welcome. CJ.
So you were talking about developing that ideal avatar. How are you getting into those nitty-gritty specifics without going and surveying or asking 100 questions? We don't want to bombard the guests either. How are you getting those super specific personas? For example, with us operating in Edinburgh, we know that we're going to get guests, avatars that are coming to visit the Six Nations, but when we actually look into that deeper, we know that people supporting certain teams or certain countries are actually staying at different places. There's certain teams that will bring 15 blokes to stay in an IBIS budget, and there's other countries that will bring families and actually spend a week in the city as well. But that just came to us through years of operating. But how are you getting so specific avatars just from kind of surveys and stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. You can ask certain obtuse questions, like what brands do you like? You know, for example, if, like I was in Iceland a few months back and almost everybody had like North Face, you know, even though their boots were clean, they were wearing North Face, you know, and so if I look at the marketing, the marketing campaigns for North Face, I can get good clues. I can know who they're speaking to, who North Face is speaking to, I can know the touch points. So understanding brand affinity is a good way to know that. You know, they might leave a North Face jacket at your house and you discover that. There's little ways that you can do that. And you can also go to your local tourism authorities as well and get some ideas. But I found it very interesting to actually walk around the areas where your guests are, if you have the capacity or you have people on the ground, actually, and just observe, see the patterns and those sort of things, and see how you can match it back to, and talk to some of the local operators, partners. And that's another way, by the way, you can incentivize guests, create partnerships with like local restaurants and stuff, and say, okay, you get 15% off at our favorite restaurant. We're known to Joe's Italian, and you know, and they feel a sense of the community, and they feel like that as well. But does that answer the question, CJ? Okay, thanks. Yeah.
David, you're using such fine detail on guest personas to a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. Is it not sufficient to say teenagers? What extra benefit is that giving you? What are you going to do with that difference?
Yeah, there are tweens. There's 12-year-olds as well, and there are 16-year-olds who, if you wanted to create something for 16-year-olds, you might want to put an Xbox in the house, or you look at activities that 16-year-olds would typically want to do in that area, and you adjust your messaging and campaigns for that as well. It's really a guide, right? It's not something you have to be stuck narrowly to, because you're going to have more than one avatar. And how you get more than one avatar is you look at your calendar and you take data from like Key Data or Price Labs Marketplace and stuff, and you look at who's going to be in the market at what particular time of year. I guess you already have a fair idea of that as well. Because what you want to do is, even if you get ideal guest avatar and it comes during the summer and the weekends, that's not good enough. You want to be full on weekdays as well and off season. So there's more than one avatar, but the needs of 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds are actually quite different from the ones of 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. And sometimes those nuances actually make a difference.
So I could be doing a campaign for people 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds,
Not necessarily. Yeah, you could be. You could be, and that's one of the important things. If you're doing specific campaigns for people in the market at a specific time, your website's not good enough to be able to capture that traffic. What you need to have is specific landing pages with funnel sequences that you run traffic to. So if you're doing a specific campaign, it's no good sending that campaign to a website, because that website is just, they'll navigate everywhere. I don't know if you ever use this tool called Hotjar, but it's like a data, it has recordings of how people actually use the website. You'd be surprised. They're meandering all over the place. They're not taking any linear approach. They're, you know, if you can download it for free actually and attach it to your website and just do recordings and see how people navigate to it. But yeah, you have to have more than one avatar, and they apply to whichever season.
It was more than one, but the infinite.
No, it's not infinite. Just have maybe the main ones for the main seasons that you're trying to deal with. But in that whole avatar process, you might have a family, but you're looking for the key decision maker in that whole process. There's going to be one person who's usually going to take the mantle of organizing and stuff. So,
David, thank you so much. Thank you for the questions as well.